This is I'm from Denver, where the city stories come to life.
Juan Padró is with us. Jake Salazar. Man, Jake, you set this interview up, but this man's like a myth, a legend. I don't even know how to describe him. I think you should introduce one of your boys here.
I mean, Mr. Padró is obviously done what he's done around town. The group and everything that they've accomplished with opening so many restaurants so fast. But I think it really goes, and I hope people understand that the concept behind this restaurant is more social equity and really the giving back portions of it, but some of the best financial and business modeling around restaurants, I would argue, in the country. So Juan, man, thank you so much for coming
Welcome
on.
to the podcast, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Where do we begin, man? Like, where's your story start? Like you're born. No, but seriously, like, kind of, how did you get into this business? Like, where did you even begin to be like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I never said that. I never said this is what I want to do. It just kind of happened. Hospitality is pretty natural to me. I grew up in a household where my father did all the cooking. He's from Puerto Rico. And, our front door was never locked. People were always welcome. I remember as a child, my mother constantly asking my father who's coming for dinner, and he's like, I don't know, I just told a few people. And so she at some point started just setting the table for like 10 people.
And
at
that's
a time.
you were raised in Boston, correct?
Worcester,
Yeah,
Worcester, Mass. Yeah,
Okay.
Charlton, right outside of Worcester. And my parents couldn't afford to live in Boston. They got a very late start. My mother was a nun.
Yeah.
She was a sister of Notre Dame for 15 years, and she left the convent to marry a political activist from Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Who spoke very little English, and she spoke no Spanish.
So dinners were very interesting, right? To say the least.
They were highly politicized, that's for sure. So I'm a son of activists, and frankly, my career started out as a headhunter during the .com era, and so people has always been core to what I've done, evaluating talent, building teams, consulting with companies on, how to build culture in teams, and it started.
You did that during the .com boom? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I started out. That's how I ended up in Denver. I was transferred out in '99 to open up an office for a company I was working for, and then 2001. 9/11 hit, and one of our largest clients was Cantor Fitzgerald in the Twin Towers. And so, that was a tough time for everybody, including our company. And, I think a lot of people were kind of reflecting on, what the hell was going on in their own lives, never mind, just tragedies like that and life events like that. I think, you kind of put your foot on the brakes a little bit and begin to reflect and ask some questions about yourself and those around you and what you want to do and all that type of stuff. So in 2002, they asked me to move back out east, and I actually decided to take a year off from work and stuck out here. And then
don't make it sound too bad, bro.
To be honest with you, I didn't particularly enjoy Denver my first time around. It
was a lot different back then.
It was a lot different, and
not as much culture. I mean, it was more burrowed off as well. I mean, it was kind of tough to find. You could find amazing meals, but you really had to look, right?
Yeah,
especially coming from somewhere like Worcester, or I mean, I assume you spent some time in Boston.
Well, I lived in Boston for 9 years, and I worked in Boston and Manhattan.
With the kind of food and everything that you would get out there, like it was. I mean, there were certain places in Denver you can go to find that kind of stuff, but you really had to know where to go, right?
Wait, so the food made you miserable?
I mean,
the general atmosphere,
I would say, just generally speaking, I'll never forget, because I was told that I had to move. They gave me 2 weeks to move out here when they transferred me, and my office was in the Tabor Center. And so I had to hire a secretary. I mean, I had to build a sales office, and we hired entry-level salespeople. And we were doing 150 cold calls a day. It was a boiler room. And so we worked really hard, and we built up a really, really, really solid business here, mostly around telecommunications. And my background was more financial services and tech. And so, one of the things I did to kind of make myself feel a little bit more at home was to seek out other people from New England who are sports fans, because I'm a big sports fan. So I was looking for, where to watch the Red Sox or the Patriots or the Braves.
Yeah,
or the Celtics.
There's always a Patriots fan
Right.
around. I mean,
That's why you didn't
especially
like
back then.
Denver. That
They won the
explains
Super Bowl
it.
in 2001.
We
I mean,
did
that
win
was
the Super Bowl in
that was a big
2001.
year that was a big year for them.
and Ray Bork was on the Avalanche when they won the Stanley Cup, so that was great for us too. So, but anyways, first time I was tear gassed in my life. Unbelievable.
Hey,
So-
we've all been there.
Yeah.
Broncos have won some Super Bowls. I've taken some tear gas to the face as well.
That is not
It's
fun,
never a
by
good
the way.
time, never
Yeah,
a good
not
time.
fun at all. So I met a bunch of guys and became friends and stayed in touch over the years. And I did have good friends out here, which was great. And 2009, I got a call saying, "Hey, you want to invest in this bar?" And they owned Spill downtown. So Spill is a
Okay.
pretty popular place.
Which everybody's been to Spill.
Right,
If you're from
exactly.
around here.
Hashtag I'm from Denver.
Right. And so I said, "Yeah, you guys know what you're doing." And so I was married at the time. And I said, "Katie, what do you think?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's invest." And I'm like, and she's like, "We don't have that much money, but they're your friends. I trust you." And so we
They're a
invested.
great group, by the way.
They
I mean,
are a
those
great
guys are
group.
fantastic.
I love them.
Yeah.
All of them, Chris and Brad and,
Yeah.
and Kevin. And I owe them everything for being in
always
this
took good
business.
care of
but-
us.
Okay, a guy that's naive here. When you invest in something like that, what does that mean? Like, what are you doing?
So, well, you're asking me like
That was the Highland Tap and
somebody
Burger, right?
as somebody who is now a restaurant officially a restaurateur, or are you asking me as somebody who was like
At that time.
evaluating at that time?
We'll evolve
at
the
that
story.
time, the answer was I don't know. They were my buddies, and I just wanted to help them out. And
And that was Highland Tap and Burger, right? When
Yeah.
when they originally asked you for an investment,
well,
it was when it was Highland Tap Burger, or were you in Spill?
it's what became Highland Tap and Burger. It
Okay.
actually originally wasn't going to be Highland Tap and Burger. I think we were going to call it like Muldoon's or something like that. Because I think the Muldoon brothers founded North Denver.
Okay.
Scottish brothers. But anyways, but there was one in like Colorado Springs or something like that.
So you
we were
invested
trying-
in it, not knowing what to expect.
and so like midway through construction, we needed more money, and so Katie and I had a decision to make. Either we were going to lose the money we had invested in it, which was most of the money we had, or we could put the rest of the money we had into it. And
Go big or
and
go
then,
home.
but if we were going to do that, we were going to switch up our lives and move out to Colorado and participate. And so we decided on the latter, obviously, thankfully. And, we opened up Highland Tap and Burger in September of 2010. And for the first 2 years we were open, I was traveling back to New York and Boston to work. I'd leave Sunday night, come back on
That's
Thursday
quite
morning.
the culture shock coming from Denver back east. I mean,
So my breakfast every Thursday, were with some sort of C-level exec on Wall Street.
yeah.
And at 5:30, Denver time, Mountain Standard Time, I was filling ketchup bottles in a burger joint in North Denver.
So you're still doing the headhunter job, and that's why you're flying out east, and then you're coming back and run the restaurant.
Yeah, I had morphed into the management consulting world at that point, and so not quite headhunting anymore. But
Were there regrets at that point, or were you exhausted, or were you? What was your mind frame? As you're going from one place to the other?
yeah.
What were you thinking? You're like, what am I doing?
No, I'm not really like that. I'm not somebody, people talk about this concept of like work-life balance, and I've never really understood that. And, for me, this was an opportunity that I was faced with to, kind of combined, into one, sort of perspective. And, if I was not a restaurateur today and I was working in consulting, I'd be working to make money to go to Napa or to go to Paris to go wine tasting or
Right.
to go to the best restaurants in New York or San Francisco or Boston or
Yep.
whatever. So now, what I enjoyed doing with the money I made, I do for a living.
Yeah.
And so it's all the same to me.
That's awesome.
And so I don't view, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I go to bed at midnight, and I take calls,
In
Well,
between.
All
pretty
day,
much all
every
day, every day. And frankly, yeah, I mean, I am in the restaurant business, and we do have kids that like to go out late, and sometimes they get in trouble. So yeah, I do get some calls at 2 or 3 in the morning. I need help.
do you think that, because a lot of people pay big money for consultants, and obviously you and it's your ex-wife Katie, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you guys are still partners, still
Oh,
friends.
she's like one of my best friends in the world.
Coming from that realm, it's interesting because people pay big, like I said, big money to bring in consultants to kind of get their tunnel vision away from them, and especially in something like what you're doing here. Do you think that really helped coming into this to see more from the 50,000 foot view because of coming from the consulting background that you did?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and I think my answer is going to be a little bit. I'm not going to answer it directly because I'm not sure that is actually what was helpful so much as you only know what you know, and you
Right.
don't know what you don't know, and Katie and I didn't know a damn thing about restaurants, and but she knew a whole hell of a lot about finance. She's a CFA,
Yeah.
has her master's in math from Harvard, and she worked at an institutional investment firm in Boston, and she was an analyst, so she had that background. She had never worked in a restaurant in her life, not one day, and but she's an academic, so she
Figured it out, yeah.
Yeah.
she became a sommelier. She went to school to
80%
become a
great.
sommelier. Went to school to become a cicerone. She got behind the bar and bartended while I was traveling. You
Yeah.
know, so she really dived in and began to really understand what the business was. And for me, I had worked in restaurants in the past. My first job was washing dishes at a seafood shack and washing those metal wire
Yeah,
fryers and stuff.
absolutely.
And back then it was you had a brush and so my knuckles were just shredded after every day. And I got promoted the following year to scooping ice cream, so that was cool. And
You did some good screen scrubbing then, man. If you get
That's
that
right.
promotion.
A lot better
That's
on the
right.
hands.
That's
lot better
right.
on
That
the
is a lot
hands.
better. on hands. Yeah. And so and then I'd worked the door at a kind of a club in Boston and one in Minneapolis, and
Okay.
and then I worked as a server for a period of time when I lived out in Portland, Oregon, for Chevy's Mexican restaurant.
So
Highly
what I'm hearing
authentic.
is you guys are all about grit. Sounds like you just got in, get your hands dirty, and say, "Listen, we're smart enough. We're smart people. We're gonna dive in there and just start doing it and owning the game. We're not just gonna, we don't want to put together a wine list. We really want to understand the wine list. Becoming a sommelier. I mean, that's stepping into. I mean, not a lot of people that go into the restaurant business just step right into it like that. I mean, that's gotta be. I mean, that
We had no kids.
that's amazing.
That was helpful.
We had no kids. We love wine.
Yeah, that was helpful. So, but yeah, the one thing it did was it really pushed us to ask questions, and because what we saw was an industry that was broken,
Right.
and I don't know that if you grow up in the industry, you kind of accept what it is, and you get very comfortable with what it is, and
Yeah, you're just you're blind to the things that are false because you're just in the grain. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look out and you're part of other conversations in society, and again, I've been part of politics my whole life, but more from an activism perspective, and just listening to people talk about the industry, and we really felt like we wanted to make a difference, and really kind of turn the industry upside down on its head, and it's a super risky thing to do. We decided to do it. We started talking about it, when we had Old Major in 2012.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at what stage did you kind of make that? Because there had to be a transition of
That was a
okay,
great
we had to
restaurant, by the
learn
way.
this restaurant, we had to learn this business, we learned it. Now, how can we make it different? Because there had to be an understanding before you can be like, all right, let's change it.
Yeah, and Old Major was an eye opener for us because, it was the first time we were doing anything that was, highly sophisticated, and it had tremendous, programming in the back and the front, and wine programs and cocktail programs and butchery programs and charcuterie programs and highly trained chefs and all the rest of that. And what we began to realize was, a lot of the criticism of the industry in terms of environment and things like that existed because it was an industry that suppresses its A talent at the hourly level. Meaning your servers and your bartenders make more than your leaders, right? And make more than your managers. And so all of a sudden now you've got a situation where you're not incentivizing your A players to get into leadership positions, and oftentimes you're not getting your first choice in a leadership position, and so you've got sometimes C players managing A players, and that just doesn't work, and that creates all kinds of problems.
Yes, it does.
And so that was the first thing we wanted to create, is like a path forward for people, because I'll never forget. And this was at Highland, parents coming in and being like, "Thank you so much for giving my daughter a job until she gets a real one. Thank you so much for giving my son." And I was like, man,
this is a real job.
Yeah, it's real work.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But also, like, I've never been in an industry where people were so passionate about what they did, so passionate about wine, so passionate about, service and hospitality.
Absolutely.
And it's really sad that we suppress art in America. We push our artists out of our urban neighborhoods, and, they can't afford galleries and stuff like that. And it's the same thing with restaurants. And Denver's kind of going through that right now. It's a pretty tough atmosphere, but, we really wanted to create what we call the path forward for people, so that they can stay in the industry that they loved. And they had a clear, concise path on, and stepping stones, and, a way to get from point A to point Z. And so the first thing, was making sure that our management, had an opportunity to make more than our hourly.
Yeah.
And the second thing was, creating equity between the front and the back of the house, because your most vulnerable people are in the back of the house. Your, immigrants,
dishwashers, and food prep, sous chefs. Yeah.
And so, and you can't share tips in the back of the house, right? Yeah. And so, we thought that was weird, and it was normalized in the industry, and it still is somewhat normalized in the industry, but it's wrong. And and to not take care of the folks that are in the back, that are, the engine, that are driving the whole thing, that are creating the dishes,
scrubbing the screen.
That's right. So, and maybe that's it. Maybe it was because I was a dishwasher, but the reality is, we needed to figure out a way to close the gap between the front and the back of the house, and that's why we went. People ask me, you've asked me in the past, Jake, why do you do the 20%? Service charge at the restaurant? Well, that's part of the activism, right? Yeah. Because that's income that is owned by the business, and the business can do what it wants with it. We use 100% of it for payroll. But what we do is, the first thing we do is we close the gap between the front and the back of the house. So our dishwashers are, around, I guess on the low end, maybe $23.50 to $24 an hour, like right around
which
there.
is a living wage,
yeah,
considering now.
It's a living wage, but and that's a whole nother conversation around, like,
they were making.
It's
than what they
were making.
Yes.
But our goal is not to have people making $24 an hour, right? Sure. Our goal is to again create that path forward, so that they can
give them better jobs as they move up, right? And creating more opportunities.
Yeah, the stepping stone can be internally. It doesn't need to be an industry. Yeah. Like hospitality doesn't need to be a stepping stone to becoming an accountant. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so, so you start there, and our line cooks are 28 to, I guess in some of our stores, into 30s an hour. Yep. And when we started, line cooks were like $15 an hour. Yeah. So we're really making progress here. And then, we have stipend for our managers that comes out of that fee as well, that, and for our high performers that we bonus. So that's part of it. And then we have an equitable business model. So our creatives have an opportunity to earn equity in the business. Mm-hmm. And that really makes a big difference too. So, we've got our most of our chef partners, certainly are all well above six figures in our company, and that's a really unique thing, and it's allowed us to scale the way we've scaled and grow the way.
And is that model, because you own how many restaurants? 13 total in Colorado? How many?
18 in Colorado,
18 in Colorado.
Three in New Orleans.
Okay, now is that model followed at all those locations, and you've kind of implemented that?
The coffee shop, no, because there's no back of the house.
Okay,
but otherwise, yes.
That's awesome.
That's in the advocacy on the front end and on the business end, right? And that's the success for the business model. That's the secret sauce.
Right.
But what I would love our viewers to see is, and I would say almost 2/3 of you personally, I would say, and also I think your business is social advocacy.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what drives you. I think you've really put yourself in the organization, and your team have put the organization in a place where you can put those things first and still be successful. And I'd really love to touch on what you're doing in the community, the things that really that make you happy, and leaving the world in a little bit better place than you found it, because I think that's a big part of what all this really is. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I joke around with my partners all the time that restaurants are my side gig. It's my philanthropy is certainly my priority,
Yeah.
and always will be.
Yeah.
And
You get that from your dad?
both my parents.
Both your parents? Yeah.
But
I mean, your
his
mom.
mom
yeah.
was a
Your
nun.
yeah. My mom was a nun. I'm not particularly religious, but I do believe in
Do unto others.
Yeah,
right?
right. And I actually support some religious organizations because I believe in their I believe in a lot of their teaching. Regis University is an example of that. We fund their bridge program, for example, and that's
great.
That's the first generation college students, of which their freshman class last year, 52% of it was first generation college kids.
Wow.
These kids have nobody to talk to. They have nobody to provide any mentorship or guidance as to what it's like to be in college.
That was me. So I benefited from individuals like yourself.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I can't speak on behalf of those individuals, but I could say that what you do is life transformative. Like, you really are making a difference, whether you get to hear it from them or not. You really are making an impact.
Yeah, I'm pretty involved in the program, so I do get to hear their stories, and frankly, by the way, that goes both ways. I get a ton of benefit from this as well. So it's not a one-way street, but we bring them in 45 days early before their freshman year, and we get a mentorship and get them acclimated to the campus.
Fantastic.
And
That's absolutely fantastic.
We usually at Tappenberger host them for a big lunch, and I go to the school and have lunch there and talk with the kids and things like that. So, and it's really, I think, made a big impact because they just started the program a few years ago at Regis. So, I went to, I was basically just at a luncheon and they were talking about it, and that was immediately something that I was drawn to, because education is really important. Even though I was not the best student.
That's actually an interesting point you make. And I think you're a history guy, and I'm definitely a history guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between you and I and Jared and I think is you come from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Education is a very high priority.
Correct.
On the East Coast. In Colorado, there's a lot of reasons why I think schools don't get funded, like Tabor and things like that. But do you see a big difference really from how you were raised educationally to what's happening in Colorado, and how do you see yourself trying to make that a little bit better?
Yeah. Yes. To answer your first question, do I see the difference?
It's kind of a lot. Right?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing the question right. Do I see a difference between the education in the Northeast and the education in Colorado? Yeah, dramatic.
Yeah.
And also, generally, I would say the perspective of people, and I think it has to do with the fact that it's just a lot more diverse in the Northeast, and so there's a lot more intellectual curiosity in general. And by the way, this isn't everybody. I don't want to make a blanket statement, but what you learn in schools and who you're interacting with, I think when you have when Colorado's somewhat apathetic as it pertains to education, because it's a very comfortable place to live. Yeah. And so why do you really need to rock the boat, when you're comfortable, right?
It's kind of like the restaurant industry.
Yeah. And so, coming from the Northeast, it's like you're constantly challenged by the African-American community, by the Latino community. And by the way, the Latino community, what the hell does that mean? I mean, we have Salvadorians that are different than Venezuelans, that are different than Puerto Ricans, that are different than Cubans, that are different than Dominicans, so you use all that. I mean, we oftentimes bunch that all into one.
Right, which is absolutely not what it is.
No, you can't even bunch Mexicans into one. Right? There's all these regions, right?
You definitely can't. You can't bunch Massachusetts into one.
Right. So it's crazy. So, but at least in my household, we were pushed to really listen and learn and take the bet and understand that diversity creates strength.
Absolutely.
And those perspectives are super important. So when you talk about the education system, the books might be the same, but the experience is not the same,
Sure.
and the perspective is not the same. And then we're left with what we have right now in Denver, which is a nice place to live, just not a great place to live yet. And I think I'm optimistic. I think the one thing I would tell you about Denver is people are very open-minded.
Yeah.
They want to know.
Yeah.
But again, it's tough to get somebody who's super comfortable, living in Cherry Hills Village, to put themselves in the shoes of a kid living in Aurora,
I absolutely couldn't agree more. Coming from the background that you do with the kind of parents that you do, which is, I mean, I think everybody kind of has their own origin story. But that's really neat origin story.
Yeah.
The nun and your father coming from Puerto Rico. With the kind of social equity programs and the things that you do, it's got to make your parents very proud. What you've built and how you build it and how you're benefiting people's lives. Would you? I mean, is that a good kitchen table moment for you? Like for that kind of stuff.
So when they saw me apply what they taught me to business, they were proud.
Yeah.
I don't know that they were super proud that I got into business.
Where do they want to see you go on that?
Some sort of like social. My mother was a teacher and then a guidance counselor in an inner city school, very tough school, Worcester, a vocational school, by the way.
Okay.
Worcester Voc, and my dad. My dad was the president of the Farm Workers Union. I mean, everyone's scared about the union. I mean, I understand. The role the union plays.
Unions definitely have a place.
They do have a place. Yeah. And I think the problem is that, there's good and there's bad.
Right.
And,
there's abuse of things on all sides. Yes.
Right. And we are seeing some abuse in Colorado a little bit with that, but the reality is that, my parents, sat me down, when they came out to visit me for the first time and, wanted to talk to me about, what I was going to do for the community that I was moving into, because my father immediately recognized it was a Latino community.
That's been massively gentrified on that side of town.
It has been, but I don't know that it's been gentrified as much as some of the other neighborhoods.
Absolutely not. I think Lost Park.
I think we contributed to that. We really, invested heavily in North High School. We really have invested heavily in Sandoval, which is a dual language Montessori school. We've
Sandoval absolutely needs that.
That's right.
As does North High School.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we got here in 2010, I think North had like a 25% graduation rate. And I don't mean to laugh at that, but I mean shit. And today, I think I read in the Denver Post this year it was like 89%.
It is. Yeah,
it's fucking incredible.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And so I remember. I mean, we had no money our first year, but we knew we had to do something. And what we chose to do was send the French club at North High, which was 12 kids, to Quebec City. We couldn't afford to send them to Paris.
Hey, that's French. That's French.
That was French.
That counts.
Yeah.
That counts.
And 10 of the kids had never left the state.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty amazing thing. That was like the first
you
thing
changed their lives. I think it's so wild because Jake was like, "Hey man, did you look up Juan?" I was like, "You know what, I did," but I like to hear the story, because to me, when you come full circle with hearing kind of your background, your family, and your parents coming out here, and even though all you've accomplished, they're more like, "Hey, what are you going to do to give back? What are you going to do for your city?" Like that kind of defines who they are as parents and in your upbringing yourself. So and then to hear that. You didn't have any money. You guys didn't know where the restaurant was going, and then you gave 10 kids, 12 kids an opportunity to go to out of country and experience something. You've made an impact on their life that forever changed it, and it all started just because your parents came at you and said, "Hey, what are you doing for the community?"
Right. and that was something we talked. My brother works for the Aspen Institute as well, and the Aspen Institute is one of the great think tanks in the world. And he runs a business and society. My brother was a tremendous hockey player, likely an NHL player, and he gave it all up to go live in Banja Luka, a border town during the Serbian-Bosnian conflict as a civilian.
Wow. Jesus.
And so, that's just the type of environment that I grew up in, And by the way, my dad's not only from Puerto Rico. My dad wasn't even born in a hospital. My dad was born on the side of a hill. He's from way up in Rancheras in the Barrio and Jauco. And I still have that family farm today. And
how often do you visit?
I go every year to the farm. I go to Puerto Rico a few times a year because that's my happy place. But you know,
That's fantastic.
but yeah, I mean, when I visited my grandparents, I mean, my grandmother would go out and grab the rooster and snap it neck and like pluck it and gut it, and you know, I mean,
Wow,
like,
yeah. You've
yeah,
literally
so-
experienced like 4
I know,
lifetimes.
man. That's why I say like one of the most interesting interviews
Yeah,
ever because
yeah.
you know, it's like it's I mean because we take it and the advocacy is amazing. With all of the family cooking and everything that comes from that kind of a culture, and how you've changed the food scene here in Colorado and Denver,
Yeah.
and then obviously now, I mean, taking food down to Louisiana, which is coming from Colorado, like that's a hell of a feat. Right? 'Cause
Yeah.
that doesn't usually happen, especially down there.
Yeah.
So I mean, how
Yeah,
have
chalk
you?
that up to my naivety. we did become the first out-of-state group ever to win Restaurant of the Year. There,
That's
so,
which is
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time down there, so the fact that happened in Colorado, that chocolate,
But it's the model. It's the model
a big
you
win. It
got.
definitely is. But the question is like, how has like your experiences in those, like, coming from a multicultural family, has it affected the kind of recipes and the foods that you put out here? Because I mean, you're very cultured. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, my parents didn't have money at all, but we did have, you know, they were very smart, and we did talk. I mean, we spent time as a family, and we talked a lot about different cultures, and we had a very diverse group of friends, and we ate lots of diverse food. You know, I grew up amongst the Greeks and the Lebanese and the Armenians and the Italians. My best friend is Jamaican, and
Who
so,
are you?
know, and so all that food, you know, I grew
That's
up eating,
amazing
so-
food back there.
Yeah, it's incredible,
There's some phenomenal
But
restaurants.
that impacted you then, all the culture and everything for food, or do you even get involved in the kitchen heavily?
I'm involved in all aspects of the business. I'm not a chef. I mean, my chefs deserve, you know, all of the credit when it comes to you know, putting menus out, but the conceptual development piece of it, what we talk about and what we look for, and you know, how we want to communicate through our food to our community, I think is important. Like, for example, like your Bardos and Señor Bears and Ashkaras, you know, we never say, you know, this is an Italian restaurant. It's an Italian inspired restaurant.
Sure.
We never say it's a Latin restaurant. It's a Latin inspired restaurant, you know? So we want to be inspired by places, and we want to pay homage, and we want to have respect for, you know, the stories and where these things came from. But
Right.
we're gonna also respect where we live, and we're gonna support our rural workforce and our farmers and our cheesemakers and our distillers and our bread makers and people like that really need it here in Colorado. So yeah, man, you're not going to get the exact same meal that you're going to get in Tuscany at Bardo, but you're going to get
Pretty
a
goddamn
meal, a
close.
meal that's inspired by that,
Yeah.
that's really
Uh-huh.
well crafted, but that uses like ingredients from Colorado, and so, or local, you know, ingredients as much as possible, and so, like, you know, I think, you know, I would say that philosophy probably came from my parents. You know, respect those around you, respect other cultures, learn from them, take what you can to help improve yourself as a human being. You know, so my parents were very progressive. You know, my dad's passed away, so my mom's still alive, but my parents were very progressive politically. And I remember, like, my parents, you know, telling me how much they respected Newt Gingrich, and because he was so smart, and he had a position that was different than theirs, but we should listen to it, and we should learn from it, and we don't necessarily need to be in the same room with somebody that we all agree with. That's no fun.
Mhm.
But we have to be respectful, and this, you know, so that's really important, and that's why we do so many different types of food. We want to respect these cultures and honor them, and just, you know, put our influence on that as well.
God, that's amazing. Well, and then I'm sure there's a whole podcast in how we can say how Jake and you became friends, because usually Jake's friends, there's a long, crazy story that's involved with that. But I know that Jake, being the chairman now for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Colorado Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, you're involved with that. Like, do you guys want to talk about what that relationship looks like and what that is? Because as you give back to the community, for people that don't know what the chamber is, maybe Jake, you can update them about kind of what that is all about. out, and then Juan, your role within that.
Well, I mean, for me, it was Juan was a very easy person to recruit to come onto the board because his story and how he treats business. And we are a chamber of commerce. I mean, after all, I mean, we are a business organization. We are very we are very progressive organization, I would say as well. Juan's approach to specifically the restaurant industry in Colorado, especially after what happened with COVID, and how he approached COVID and some of the things that he did during COVID, are awe-inspiring. I think more business owners really should take notes and read about some of the things that he did, and how he utilized PPP funds and really. I think you had a quote that I loved that it was. People should act more from their heart and soul and morality, not always sometimes what legally, right? I mean, I think that to me was like one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you to come on the board. So I mean, to me, he was the ultimate recruit.
And as a board member, what does that mean? Like, what?
It means he's gonna hopefully, he's brand new to the organization, but bring that level of entrepreneurship and that way of thinking, and influence our board of directors, and influence the organization, because a lot of our members are restaurant owners. And you know, they represent a big part of the Hispanic business community. And I think Juan has really set the example for that. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, Juan, how does it feel to be part of the chamber as a
Well, certainly a great honor. We're just getting going. The actual, I think the gavel gets handed tomorrow.
Well, this comes out way after that.
Yeah,
so he's already got the gavel.
So, but I think first and foremost, I'm going to go in and listen. I've already, met with Paulette and, so I know Mike and some other folks, and we've participated in sub-org for years, and it's just something that I'm proud of. So we'll see the impact I can make. I'm certainly, I don't say yes to anything I'm not going to put my best foot forward to do, So.
And you say yes to a lot, because we got, so here's what's crazy is, so one of the things that were like, let's give us some topic points that we can ask Juan about. And so they send us this email that was like 50 bullet points. But the kudos to you, because the 50 bullet points were all things that you're doing actively in the community. I was like, is anything to be about the restaurant?
Of like the 40 lines they sent us. They were like, and by the way, we're opening 2 restaurants.
Yeah. Yeah, the restaurants. Creating jobs is really important, and creating good jobs is really important. And so that's the restaurant stuff. And I love food and wine, but again, we have a greater purpose. And restaurants, I think, until society and until the government begins to view restaurants as a long-term solution, there's going to be problems. And the reality is, 1 in 5 Americans works in hospitality and 1 in 10 works in restaurants. That's an astonishing number. And we employ a disproportionate amount of our most vulnerable, single moms, people from disadvantaged communities, things like that. And we are
English as a second language.
Right.
Yeah.
And we touch every issue of the day, right? Yeah. If you take restaurants out of it, the issues of the day that you read about in the newspaper, that you hear about in the news,
it's all in a restaurant.
It's immigration. Yeah. It's affordable housing. It's environmental and sustainability issues. It's food insecurity. It's rural workforce development. Like, restaurants aren't going to solve all of those, but they can put a big dent. They can put a bigger dent in all of those than any other industry. Yeah. And so if we have a tremendous platform, and when people start focusing on that, and start putting their effort into correcting, what is dysfunctional about the industry, they're going to have an entire army of people that are hospitable and that give a shit about the world around them, and they're going to inspire them to go out and make the world a better place. And that's all we're trying to do on a micro level, within our organization. So
what a wild perspective. And it's so true because if you're just a guy going to a restaurant, and that's just me going to a restaurant, you don't realize the social economic impact that is really being had. And that's so crazy when you break it down like that. It's like, it makes me like, man, I need to watch more Anthony Bourdain, because he was like a perfect example of that when he would go to all these different spots.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I read a statistic in January that in 2023, 64% of Americans were fed at restaurants on a daily basis.
That's an absolutely believable number.
Yeah.
I think it's
You
possibly
skew
even
that a little
more.
bit. You're
Yeah.
what, 3 times a day? Yeah.
I'm like, well, there was Uber
There's
this
not-
morning.
there's not-
there was,
forget me not, by the way. Fortaleza is not in a food group.
well, that's a perfect segue because the efficacy and everything that you've done to build it, and then there's actually the front facing part of the organization, right? Which are the restaurants themselves, which are phenomenal. I don't think you've opened up a restaurant that hasn't been successful.
I feel like
And
we barely talked about any of the restaurants.
Well, that's I mean, this is the cool part is, I mean, there's so much behind this company, so much behind this person. And so on the front end though, these are phenomenal restaurants. They are phenomenally ran. From the management to the staff, to the decor, to the cocktails,
Award winning.
everything is award winning. And you have attracted to Denver some of the world's biggest celebrities. I don't know if people, and I know for a fact that some of our followers do not know how many celebrities you actually attract to come to Colorado, and the people that you sit with on an average Saturday night, from Alex Rodriguez to the Avalanche to the Nuggets.
Can you get him on our podcast? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, there are literally celebrities that fly into town just to eat at your restaurants.
What a mind trip.
I know. I mean, I don't know of any other restaurants in Colorado that can say that. You can.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that make you feel? And what do you think that does to draw attention to the other bigger things that we've just talked about?
So, we're not very good at telling our story about our philanthropy, and we're not very good at telling, we're not a place that posts a lot of pictures about celebrities in our places.
Yeah.
We do the vast majority of celebrity business in town for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that actually does because we don't promote it.
Obviously, you don't need it.
What it does do is, a lot of these people that come into town are like-minded in terms of the philanthropy.
Yeah.
And because of the philanthropy work, in particular the work that we did in Puerto Rico for Hurricane Maria, really opened up a lot of doors in that world, and I think people began to kind of pay attention to this restaurant group in Denver, Colorado, that was, out running logistics for the island of Puerto Rico and getting aid down there, and so I think all of this stuff is, kind of feeds off one another in one way, shape, or form or another, and,
Sure.
Steel O'Brim from Ridiculousness texted me the other day and said, "Hey, my mom's in Denver. Can she's going to eat at A5, right?"
Yeah.
And so so stuff like that, you get, RZA bartending at Forget Me Not.
Yeah, which was awesome,
which
by
was
the way.
incredible from the Wu-Tang. And so, we do get a lot of interesting people.
I don't recall anybody else, and I've been to every bar in Denver for a long time, and you know this. I don't think anybody else has ever had RZA bartend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went down.
A guest bartender.
They invited me down in Vegas. The Wu-Tang started their residency at the Virgin Hotel, and I was down there a couple of weeks ago, which is probably still why my voice is the way it is. So I apologize to everybody out there.
Well, it's a good podcast voice.
I met a young woman that I've taken out on a few dates, and she's from Nicaragua, and she says I sound like Antonio Banderas. So
I like it.
It's like, is it the fact that your upbringing and everything that makes you so humble about that? Does it blow your mind a little bit to be hanging out with these celebs, or is it because you're very modest about it?
Yeah.
What balances that out? Because I think that there is kind of you see restaurants, you see people. I mean, you don't have to be to Hollywood to see people get egomaniacs when they're like, I know celebrities, this and that. They name drop all the time. Does it matter to you that celebrities are coming to your spot? Like you're very even keel about it.
Yeah. So most of what I learned in my life as it pertains to like restaurants and stuff was from my dad, but my mother would always tell me that, she never to let what other people said, or never to let, other people's opinions bother you. I mean, that's their, you just keep moving forward. And she never let that stuff bother her. And she was part of the teachers union and things like that. So there was criticisms and stuff. And it's the same mentality. It's not the same situation. I think the mentality is that, I'm just moving forward, and I'm very focused on what my mission is and what my values are, and I think I've just, as I've gotten older, become very comfortable in my own skin. And I don't view,
they're just people.
I don't view anybody really particularly any different. Like, I love talent, and I would tell you that really it comes down to that. Like, people who are starstruck, ultimately they're starstruck by somebody that has immense talent. So you could make an argument that I could be equally as starstruck walking into one of my kitchens and seeing Max McKissick or Blake Edmonds or, because they are savants, they are geniuses, Nicole Beverage at Forget Me Not, and she's a genius. Yeah. And so, when RZA's a genius, he writes symphonies, and he's one of the most iconic hip hop. But it's the same for me. I think the cool thing about those guys is they recognize that too.
Yeah, because you're not freaking out, because they get that all the time. People want to take a selfie with them. People freak out when they see them, and you're just coming in there as, hey, I respect your talent.
Yeah, well, they're coming in there.
They're coming in because of your talent.
Yeah, exactly. So is there like a favorite story, for our viewers here? So as the progression and the success over time since you've been here, and it's been a little over 10 years now. Yeah, that you've been building.
Yeah, it's 2010.
Yeah,
14 years.
14 years. Yeah. Is there a favorite story in there to share of like, it could be, anything, if it's an
accomplishment.
Was there a moment where you just, that made you feel great, or just a fun thing to talk about?
Something for you?
Yeah.
I would say, Ashkara was a restaurant that really struggled when it first opened up. And I think we had, Mediterranean food was really misunderstood in Denver generally. The young kids didn't think it was cool. Meanwhile, every other city in the freaking world, it's like the hottest cuisine. But for some reason, the Denver kids were like, there's something wrong with this. I want to do tasting menus. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I had a really hard time. The front of the house kids were like so kind, but they weren't like tactically great at their job. and I was like just pulling my hair out. And one day I realized that the reason why people were actually going to Ashkara at all was because how genuinely nice the kids in the front of the house were. They were like genuinely nice people. And it just was a great reminder of how much kindness means and how much humility means. And we lost our chef. He just, I don't want to do this food and stuff like that. And a young kid, who was the sous chef, who had moved over from Bordeaux to be the sous chef over there to continue to develop. He'd been with us since he'd been like a junior line cook. He said, hey, would you consider me for this job? And I said, absolutely not. I said that you are not ready for this job. And he's a kid that was just like really quiet. And I feel like I'm very drawn towards like dynamic leaders. And so he said, this was a Sunday when he called me, and he said, can we get together on Tuesday? I want you to think about it a little bit. And I said, okay. And I said to myself, this kid has never asked for anything, so I'm at least going to sit with him and talk. And he came in and he had some menu ideas, and I could see that he really wanted this. And I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. If I give you this opportunity, I'm going to require you to go to Boston and work with Anna Sorton, who, in my estimation, is the best Mediterranean chef in the country. And she has a place called Oleana. She has a bunch of restaurants, but Oleana in Cambridge, Massachusetts is my favorite restaurant.
Okay.
So I called her up and she said, yeah. And I by the way, I didn't know her very well. We had met a couple times, but this is the cool thing about our industry. So I said, she's like, I'm really busy. I'll give him a couple hours, but I'll get him set up in all 4 spots over the course of the week. And I got a call from her about 3 days in. I'm like, oh boy. and I knew he wasn't getting in trouble because he's not like that type of kid, but
what's the report card going to look like?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
In anticipation of like the mid-semester, like what is it?
She's just like, this kid is the greatest kid.
Wow.
He works
there you go.
hard and
Okay.
all this stuff. And so it made me feel really good. I actually flew out for the weekend, the end of the last couple of days. I wanted to take him to Fenway Park and wanted to take him to see some things.
Wow. Okay.
And get him down in New York and stuff like that. And
Because he got all A's on his report card. Is that?
no, it's just we try
Way better than ice cream, by the way.
we try to do that with our staff. We try to get them out, and
Yeah, I'm kidding.
That is very cool, man.
That's awesome.
But anyways, so he comes back and he gets into the kitchen and sure as shit, he's quiet. He's not applying what he had learned to the kitchen. And so I said, Max, you got to get in there and work with Reggie on this because I know he learned all this stuff. Anna told me she
Right.
wouldn't lie. And so Max got in there and they kind of reconfigured the menu and he just started getting a little bit more confident and he started working on stuff. And all of a sudden, Ashkara, between the kids being so kind in the front, regardless of their tactical service, and Reggie in the back, like really like wanting this as bad as he did,
Right.
started to really turn around and started to become profitable and started to go up, 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 up. And then they got the Michelin bib.
Yeah.
And which just came out of nowhere. And by the way, Reggie's he's a young black kid who grew up in Aurora.
Yeah.
And there's 4 black Michelin chefs in the world.
Wow.
And there are at least at the time when we had one, maybe there's more now, but there aren't many. And I don't know how many have bibs. I really would like to know that number, but we have one in Colorado, and I don't understand why that's not celebrated more.
Well, we're going to
here.
celebrate that.
Yeah,
We're-
we're definitely
yeah.
going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that, so proudest moment.
What a
I would
proud
say.
moment. You definitely
so-
just picked the one.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So
What
That's-
awesome story don't you have?
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
those
I had
guys-
some cool stories.
yeah,
These
they-
are great stories.
they were up 38% year over year. That's astonishing number in a restaurant. And, part of that was the bid, but they were already on their way up before they got that. And they're just killing it in the front and the back. They've got stability. It's a happy place. People love it. It's affordable. It's high value driven. The food's great, all that type of stuff. And I eat there more than any of our restaurants.
Well, I know you're busy because I see your phone constantly blowing up over here with those calls. But before
we
we
should
wrap,
let them do a plug.
yeah, we should. Before we wrap up, I do want to know because you talked about and that's just my ADHD
Yeah.
noticing that. Don't worry about that.
Same. I flipped it over because you never know what's going to come across.
You talked about your mission and that what is it now? Like you've accomplished so much over the last 14 years, and you constantly grow and you constantly help the community. What is the overarching goal? Like, what's the mission now that you have for yourself or for your restaurants? Like, what do you see happening?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just to stay focused on and humble and on and just like really like not forget what we're here to do, which is change the perception of an industry, create a path forward for folks, and I don't know about you guys, but if I take Uber a lot, and I always ask an Uber driver, where they're from, what they're doing.
Definitely.
Half the time, it's like I was an engineer in Senegal.
Yeah.
But their credentials don't transfer here. So
Yeah.
they're driving Uber, but they would love to open a restaurant, but they can't get access to capital. It's this crazy thing. You're going to give an 18-year-old kid from Greenwood Village who's never done a damn thing in his life and wants to work 30 hours a week
No shit.
alone, but you're not going to give a guy from Senegal who is a master's in engineering, who was a
work his ass
professional,
off.
Yeah.
who needs to take care of his family alone because he doesn't have credit. What the hell is wrong with us? So like,
This is why you're at the chamber, bro.
so, it's like,
That's great.
And so for us, we're not really a restaurant group. I do want to emphasize that we are an incubator. We are an incubator of artists, and we create an infrastructure for our artists to create, and we create a path forward for our kids to stay in an industry that they love. And we create
And amazing
stability.
returns for your investors.
Yeah, our investors do. Our investors do well. But look, man, we just went through a capital raise, and I told them I'm not distributing for 3 or 4 years at all. Not a dollar. It's all going back in to invest in these kids.
Yeah.
And I live that way too. I don't. I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. It's very rare you see me with closed-toe shoes. I have them on today, but
for the podcast.
I'm super. Yeah, right. I'm
He was doing
super.
it for us.
I'm super casual. I rent an 2-bedroom apartment. I don't live in this big house or anything like that. That's not me. I'm really just focused on, trying to stay as close to what I'm passionate about. And, I don't want to do things that like draw me away from that, so.
Well, kudos to your parents. They did an amazing job. Kudos
Thanks.
to you for what you're doing for the community. I myself just being that person that didn't have an opportunity and didn't have mentorship when I went to college and struggled by a single mom. Individuals like yourself, it can't be understated what you do to make an impact. Like, I'm sitting here now in awe of you and listening to your story, but I'm also learning from you. But I am here because of an individual like you made a sacrifice to give me that chance. And so I just have nothing but the utmost respect for you. And I haven't even tried the food yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And I think, for business owners out there, you read these like self-help books and these business books, and you get, all your peers push you to do it and stuff like that. And the problem is that it creates bias. And the problem with bias is that, the benefit of it is that you become a very efficient businessman or businesswoman. The problem with it, when they say don't worry about the noise, or don't worry, you don't want the distraction, you don't want all that stuff, you're not paying attention to the world around you.
Sure.
And for me, I have a fundamental problem with that. I can just hear other CEOs and business people cringing me when I'm saying this right now. But, but the reality is my priority is the world around me. It's not, efficiency is important, but it sure as hell is not as important as some kid from Aurora who's trying to fucking open up a business in Denver, know? So.
100%. Well, thank you for sharing this with our viewers, because it was really important to us to get this out there. I think people are really going to appreciate, and I think what the restaurant group is doing more, hopefully. Are there any? I know you have some upcoming projects and some new restaurants opening up.
Yeah, give yourself a little bit of braggadocious moments.
Please share anything you would like to share about the business, and anything that's up and coming, or something.
Yeah, I'm
that's
worried
already
we
going
missed
on.
one of the 50 bullet points.
Yeah. I didn't see those, by the way, so I don't know the answer to that.
When we're done.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. It was great.
So, the thing we're most excited about is in September, we're going to open up Magna Kainan, which is with Carlo LaMagna, who's a Filipino chef, who currently lives in Portland, Oregon, but grew up between Detroit and the Philippines, and was Food and Wine Magazine 2021 Chef of the Year nationally.
Great wine country up there.
And a great wine country up there, yeah. But again, it's about bringing food that's identifiable but different enough that you're like, I don't really know what Filipino food is, but you know what rice is, and you know what noodles is, and you know what pork is, and so we're gonna open up a restaurant for a kid who has opened up small little kind of corner restaurants because that's what they could afford. And we're going to open up a signature restaurant for this guy, and we're going to let the world know about how special he is.
That's fantastic.
Well,
and where's that going to be at?
That's going to be in Rhino, like 38th and Walnut, and then we have a cocktail bar on the 12th floor, which will overlook the city and the mountains. It's got a 45-foot operable wall, glass wall.
That's awesome.
And so it'll be a pretty special project. And so I think we're very, very, very excited. That should open in August. Then the restaurant will probably open in September. So that's we have a lot of other things that are happening, but if I was just going to focus on one, I think that's what we're most excited about.
We'll throw up everything on I'mFromDenver.com so everyone can check out your restaurants. I think a lot of people are going to have a different perspective when they eat out, and probably more likely to eat at your restaurant just because of the impact that it has and what you do for the community. So just thank you for coming on the podcast and with your Antonio Banderas
my voice,
podcast voice, and it was a great interview, man, and nothing but the best for you. We appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me. It means a lot. Look forward to the chamber stuff. Sorry, I'm going to miss tomorrow night because I have guests coming into town that are flying in for the Nuggets.
Wu-Tang.
I became, over the last few years, really good friends with Anthony Edwards' manager, Justin Holland, who's just the most spectacular guy. He took that kid in when he was 14 years old, and he was a football player. And so not even really, I mean, the kid's been playing basketball literally for 7 years.
Wow.
And I kind of think he might be the second best player in the NBA right now. And so, he and I immediately connected over that type of stuff. And he had a young girl that he mentors that actually guarded Caitlin Clark on Sunday at South Carolina. And so I love being around that guy, and we'll have a lot to talk about, and we'll be over at Forget Me Not after the game.
Well, we'll probably be there after the gavel anyway, so we'll head your way.
All right.
Thanks, guys. I'm from Denver. Thank you, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
That's a wrap from the Mile High Storytellers. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.